Hello, my name is Brittany Lord and I'm a facilitator for the Remembering Our Babies counseling group. We are so excited in 2023 to be offering so many ways that we can come alongside people who have lost children in our community and beyond to infant death, miscarriage, who struggle with the deep pain of infertility. So again, in 2023, we're going to be offering 3 different ways with the Remembering Our Babies counseling group to be able to help those in our community and beyond. One of the ways that we do that is through our walk, and that happens in October or November, depending upon how the schedule falls. And we're able to take the steps that our babies never got to take. We honor our babies and the families that lost them with a walk, food trucks, a huge raffle, fun things for families and kids to do, and just a great time to share along with everyone and to help other people to understand that you're not alone. So this happens again in October or November. We're also offering this monthly podcast. So on the first of every month, you can expect for this video to show up on this YouTube channel. Please stay tuned and watch all of our past videos starting this past February and going through next month, and then we'll be able to start over starting in October. So what we wanted to do today is to talk a little bit about, in this podcast video, about the 5 stages of grief. We talked about that back in February, but I wanted to recap and check in to see how everyone's doing, how they're noticing through that 5 stages of grief, and how they're cycling through the mental, emotional, physical effects of grief, and just to see where you're at with that. Also, one of the things that we're going to be offering in addition to the walk and to these monthly videos are individual counseling sessions. So I am an LPC MHSP here in Chattanooga, and I have private practice. And I'm so excited to be able to come alongside this group and to be able to offer individual counseling sessions for those who have lost children to infant death, miscarriage, or who struggle with the deep pain of infertility. So if you need more information about that, please message us, reach out to us, get in touch with us some way, comment on this video, and we'd love to give you some more information about how we can offer you those 2 complimentary sessions. And those are paid for by the fundraising efforts of this group and the generous donations that we receive all year round. This video is not intended to be a diagnosis. It's not intended to be emergency or to take the place of individual therapy. Please use it as education in helping you decipher, is what I'm experiencing normal? Do I need further assistance and further help? If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me. If you experience a medical or mental health emergency, please stop this video and go to your nearest emergency medical facility, and they'll be able to help. So again, today we wanted to talk about the 5 stages of grief and maybe identify where you can see your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual effects of grief showing up with those. Now I'm going to be dropping in a handout with these. Keep in mind that the 5 stages of grief are not to tell you how to think or feel or what you're supposed to be feeling, but just to offer some normalizing, some validation to let you know that what you're experiencing is normal, that you're not weird, that you're not the exception, and to be able to help you identify, okay, I'm seeing parts of each one of these stages. And that's the point. As we can see these parts of these stages showing up in what we're experiencing, that shows that we're on the healing process. I've read some books about the healing process, and it almost identifies the healing process as we get to a final destination, right? We reach that stage of acceptance of what we've experienced, and we're there, we've arrived, we've hit the finish line. For the people that I have talked to who have lost children in the way that we all have, healing does not come at a final destination. We will never, ever get over the loss of our child. It's a loss that is unlike any other. This is not in the normal human growth process, the normal human growth and development. We are not supposed to outlive our children. And losing a child, no matter what age, leaves a mark that will never change. we can heal, we can notice we're moving through these cycles of grief, these stages of grief rather, and we're coming more into a state of acceptance. That's not to say that we won't still see some anger, some sadness, some if only or what if feelings coming up. And that's totally normal. If you have any questions about that, feel free to ask. So again, the stages of grief, the handout that I use does not show the stages in a linear fashion. And the reason I like that is because most people, in fact, I don't know of one single person, really experience the 5 stages of grief in a nice, neat, linear way. It looks a little chaotic, kind of like a plate of wadded up spaghetti. You may experience denial one day, anger the next, maybe in a stage of acceptance the next day, and then be right back to that denial, maybe in a process of hours, minutes, weeks, months. So it makes us feel a little chaotic. But that first stage of grief many times is experienced called denial. Denial is not necessarily saying I don't recognize what happened or I'm not accepting or know the facts of a situation. Maybe you know your child died, but maybe you haven't come on to the full-on magnitude of what that means for you and for moving forward and for what you're going to experience and what your family is going to experience as a result of that. Another stage of grief is anger. Many times people are told with the grieving process, you shouldn't feel angry. Maybe somebody's got it better than you. Well, at least you had that time with your loved one. At least you had that little bit of time. This is a popular one, and many times women of childbearing age, when they're younger especially, well, you're young enough to have more children. Well, you have other children. And so many times our anger can show up in some of those, quite frankly, insensitive comments. I think others in our lives, they love us and they don't know what to say. But kind of like Job's friends, maybe the best idea is just to sit and not talk sometimes. But anger can show up in well-meaning comments. Anger can show up in maybe that friend that you thought would have shown up for you that didn't. Maybe your mom didn't respond in the way that you would have liked her to. I don't know what that might be. Or maybe you're mad at yourself, or I may get some pushback on this, but maybe you're mad at God. God is our perfect parent, and He knows our heart, and He knows our feelings, and He knows our motivations, and He knows how much we're hurting. Just like if you have a child and that child comes to you and says, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm angry at you. I even hate you at times. We know that child does not hate us, that they love us, and that they're hurting. My personal belief is that God believes that too. He knows we're hurting. He knows as a parent what that feels like because He watched His own son suffer, and it pained Him. Depression is just like it sounds. Now, this is not diagnosable depression. So major depressive disorder is a DSM diagnosis that psychologists and counselors, psychiatrists would give to a person. Now, depression associated with grief looks just like depression: isolating, sadness, crying, not taking joy in things that you used to, being lethargic. So again, this can come up anytime, days, weeks, hours, and you can experience these 5 stages of grief. Now, one person may stay in one stage more than another, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not in the grieving process and they're not moving through their grief. Another lesser talked about stage is bargaining. Those are the thoughts of if only or what if. What if I had gone to the hospital sooner? What if I'd have called the doctor yesterday instead of tomorrow? These thoughts are normal for us because our brains try to rationalize situations and help us to understand meaning behind things. And unfortunately, I think we know too often in our world that sometimes there's just no rationalizing things. Bad things happen, and it's very, very sad. So those thoughts of if only or what if are normal within the bargaining stage. The last stage, but certainly not the final stage, is acceptance. Now, this is not saying that what happened is okay. We will never be okay with the loss of our child. How could we? But this is saying that I'm accepting what my new normal is going to look like. So maybe as we go through this grieving process, we come to that stage of acceptance and we realize, hey, I'm in here the majority of the time, right? but maybe that death date or that birthday or a significant holiday or family event triggers us to go right back into one of those stages. Maybe we're right back in that denial phase or right back into that sadness or depression stage. Me giving you this information is to let you know that what you're experiencing is normal. And as we move in inside and out of these stages of grief, we're going through the healing process. Now, as we go through that process, maybe sometimes, we're talking about those thoughts and feelings, processing our grief experience with both sides of our brain is very helpful. And one way that I've encouraged to do that, a really practical way, is to create a timeline of their fertility experience. Now, one does not usually just grab a piece of paper and remember things in a nice, neat, linear fashion, right? That's not the way our memories work. We get little snippets of things, little flashes, maybe here in 2008, maybe here in 2015. But as we remember back of our fertility journey, we will get some of those flashes. So it's helpful sometimes to make a timeline of that. So for example, this is one that I started just in my own handwriting. It doesn't have to be anything grand. You can make it just as amazing. Use graphics, use one of the graphic design apps. And you can start out with the beginning of your fertility journey and then go to the present. So one way to do this, and you can do it however that you want to, is maybe to put the positive experiences on top and some of the negative experiences on the bottom. So for me, in 2013, I had a son die at 23 days old. And then many years later, in 2018, I had a speaking engagement in front of my church. And many women came up to me and said, "Hey, I identify. Thank you so much for talking about your experience." So maybe that's an example of a positive thing that happened in your grieving experience. So if you can't think of these things in nice, neat, linear fashion, that's okay. Maybe you start out by doing just a simple bulleted list, just putting those those memories down in a nice, neat, fashion that just comes to you as they come to you. And then you can take that bulleted list and plug it in your timeline. Many times a timeline, and when I've done this with different clients, they're able to see how different things connect together. I'll pull this up again. So maybe we didn't stop to think that thing that happened in 2008 happened alongside, or maybe we remember a grief experience that we had many years ago that we just then realized in 2008 when we started our fertility journey. Try it out. See what you think. Let me know what you come up with in the comments. Reach out to us with some of these things that we've given to you. I really want to know how it's helped. Maybe let me know too how you've made it your own. You can take an idea of mine or somebody else's and you can change it to fit your needs. And maybe that might be the very thing that helps another person where my method didn't. So please share that. As I always say in every video, this is a club that nobody wants to be a part of. But we can learn from each other, we can come alongside each other, and we can help each other on our grief journey. If you or someone you love has lost a child to infertility or has experienced infertility, miscarriage, or infant death, please let us know. Allow us to come alongside you during your time. I hope this video finds you well. Take care and see you next time.